A Second Chance at Love. Previous episodes are available in playlist. A link is given in the video description. Episode 63. With that, the two women were considered to have completely fallen out with each other. When Frida stepped out of the Pearson residence, the smile on her face instantly vanished as a wave of regret and fury washed over her. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have gotten close to Aubrey. Her family is now destitute, yet she refuses to let me go. Her expression remained grim throughout the journey back to the Queen residence. Worried about Frida, Jonathan had been waiting for her in the living room. His heart sank when he noticed the expression on her face as she entered the living room. What happened? Did you and Aubrey have a fight? If I'm not mistaken, Aubrey and Frida have always been on good terms with each other. Since Frida went over to check on Aubrey, they shouldn't have fought. Or could my suspicion be right? Are they hiding something from me? That thought weighed heavily on his heart, and he fixed Frida with a penetrating gaze. Rida's long-suppressed rage finally erupted after she heard her brother's words of concern. It's all your fault. We have been friends with the Parsons for a long time, yet just as they landed in trouble, we pounced on them like hungry strays to get their assets for ourselves. If you were Aubrey, wouldn't you be upset? Jonathan knitted his brows. You know nothing. Relationships have no place in the corporate world. Besides, the Pearsons were also unable to hold onto their assets. If we didn't make a move, someone else would have done so. Her eyes widened. Then just before she could say they should give someone else that chance, he interjected sternly, "Shut up. This concerns Queen Group, and I've already discussed it with the shareholders." There were no objections, and it was also an order from Lucian. Do you think we are more closely associated with the Farwell family or the Pearson family? Frida's pupils shrank at the mention of Lucian. A sense of fear overtook her, and her rage dissipated. Jonathan stared at her fixedly for some time. Upon noticing that she stopped retorting him, he coaxed, "Don't meet with the Pearsons anymore. Consider that you did your very best as Aubrey's friend with today's final visit. You must have no more dealings with them from now on. It would be best to forget about them and move on." An ugly scowl crept up Frida's face. Of course, I want to do that as well, but Aubrey will never let me off so easily. Her hesitation did not go unnoticed by Jonathan, whose countenance darkened. You must be aware that Aubrey can never become Mrs. Farwell. What she did is now widely known in Harrington. If you don't sever your connections with her, it will damage the reputation of the Queen family. Frida trembled imperceptibly. Her biggest fear was that the Queen family would be affected. I dread to imagine the state I'll end up in if my family becomes destitute. But how can I be rid of Aubrey? Despite how hard she racked her brain for a solution, not a single one came to mind. At that point, she wanted nothing more than to confess her past deeds. However, she was afraid Jonathan would kick her out of the Queen family before Lucian could take action against her. The only person who can be the lady of the Farwell family is Roxanne, and there will be plenty of occasions where we have to socialize with her in the future, Jonathan uttered. Something else occurred to him, and he advised, I remember you used to treat Dr. Jarvis rather rudely. You'd better find a chance to apologize to her lest it affects our future dealings with her. His words struck a chord with Frida. She seemed to think making amends with Roxanne was a good idea. Though she did not like Roxanne, at the very least, the latter was much more amicable than Lucian. I can ask Roxanne to intercede on my behalf. Harboring that thought in mind, Frida feigned obedience and nodded in agreement. Jonathan could tell that something was wrong with his sister's emotions. He pondered for a long while before saying, "Tell me when you decide to visit Dr. Jarvis. I'll accompany you." Having taken the hint, Frida felt much more confident, and her expression became brighter. Jonathan had a stern look on his face as he continued sternly, "If you've offended her previously, seize the chance to give her a proper apology. Dr. Jarvis isn't petty, so she'll forgive you if you admit to your mistakes, not to mention I'll be present as well." She nodded obediently in response, but inwardly, her mind was racing with various thoughts. While Jonathan made it sound like a simple task, I'm not convinced that Roxanne will be so forgiving. If she discovers that I indirectly harmed her children by supplying the bacterium to Aubrey, I'm not sure if she will still be willing to forgive me. Perhaps I should gauge her reaction gradually before confessing to the crime. All right. You should go upstairs and get some rest. Let me know when you've made up your mind, and I'll inform Dr. Jarvis," Jonathan voiced. Afterward, he sighed and dismissed Frida with a wave. He thought that his efforts were in vain again, but to his surprise, she volunteered, "Jonathan, I was wrong. Please ask Dr. Jarvis when she is free so that I can apologize to her at the earliest opportunity." A hint of astonishment flashed across Jonathan's eyes. Why did she change her mind today? Frida touched her nose and added, "I was too set in my ways previously. As you've said, Dr. Jarvis will get married to Lucian one day. If I'm on bad terms with her, it won't bode well for our family's future." At the end of her utterances, she flashed a charming smile at her brother. "Would it be possible for me to rejoin Queen Group once Dr. Jarvis and I have reconciled?" she inquired. Jonathan scrutinized her for several seconds but did not notice anything odd in her expression. Thus, he agreed right away. "After you apologize to Dr. Jarvis, and she agrees to forgive you, you can return to the company. Remember not to do anything foolish in the future." The reason he and Alfred terminated Frida's employment at Queen Group was that they felt her actions had impacted the reputation of the Queen family. At the same time, they were concerned that she would remain obstinate and fail to recognize the offense she might cause to Farwell Group. If Roxanne agreed to forgive Frida's past deeds, the Queen family would recover its reputation. Hearing his answer, Frida heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. "As long as I get to return to Queen Group, I can still appease Aubrey if she asks me for more money." After she decided to offer an apology as soon as possible, Jonathan wasted no time in giving Roxanne a call. Roxanne was recently busy with work at the Research Institute. Motivated by the newfound knowledge that Estella was the child whom she thought had passed away during childbirth, she decided to remain in Chennai and pursue her career there so that she could be with the little girl. To achieve her goal, she had been working overtime to obtain new projects in an attempt to help the Research Institute make a name for itself in Chennai. As a result, she did not have time to pay attention to any external disputes. When Jonathan called her, she was busy developing new medications with the researchers at the Research Institute. Following Colby's arrest, the responsibilities she carried in the Research Institute became greater. In fact, Roxanne was so swamped with work that she had to find time to answer Jonathan's call. Over the phone, Jonathan merely told her he wanted to talk to her about something. As the Queen family was closely related to the research institute, she agreed to squeeze an afternoon meeting into her busy schedule. They ended the call after agreeing to a time and location. At noon the next day, Jonathan brought Frida shopping. They bought a bunch of gifts before driving to the restaurant where they were supposed to meet Roxanne. The restaurant was near the research institute. Due to the closeness of both locations, Roxanne thought she could head back to do some more work if their meeting ended early. Something in the research institute held her up, so Jonathan and Frida were already waiting in the private room by the time she arrived. "I'm sorry, Dr. Jarvis. Did I interrupt your work?" Despite addressing Roxanne by her name in front of Lucian, Jonathan was mindful of his behavior and addressed her politely when she was present. Roxanne offered him a polite smile. Her gaze then landed on Frida, and confusion crossed her eyes. "If I'm not mistaken, Frida never liked me. So why is she here today?" Considering how busy she was handling various projects at the research institute, Roxanne did not want to be involved in any trouble. Jonathan rose to his feet and pulled out the chair for her like the gentleman he was. Frida recognized the error of her ways, so she asked for my help to schedule a meeting with you. She wants to apologize to you personally. As he spoke, he swept his gaze across his sister. Frida obediently got to her feet while wearing a sincere smile. "Dr. Jarvis, I was too immature in the past. Because Aubrey and she paused before continuing, "Aubrey and I are good friends, so when I saw how close you were to Lucian, I immediately harbored prejudices against you. I now realize I was in the wrong. Hopefully, you won't hold it against me." Rita implied that her horrible attitude toward Roxanne in the past was entirely due to Aubrey's influence. With that mere sentence, she had put the blame on Aubrey. Roxanne understood the implicit message in Frida's words and felt slightly uncomfortable. She could not bring herself to accept her apology. Naturally, Jonathan also realized what Frida meant. His expression turned grim as he chided, "Frida." Frida's expression grew increasingly sincere as she retrieved a gift she had bought earlier. "I've realized my mistakes now. You're the only one Lucian has ever loved. Roxanne, I was foolish in the past, so could you please forgive me? Since Jonathan and Lucian are best friends, I would like to be your bestie, too," she exclaimed. While speaking, she offered the gift to Roxanne. With those words, she had put Roxanne on the spot, making it difficult for the latter to refuse without seeming unkind. At that moment, Frida was fairly confident that she would win Roxanne's forgiveness. "I've humbled myself this much, so there's no way Roxanne will refuse to forgive me." To her surprise, the other woman fell silent momentarily before pushing the gift back to her. "I am willing to forgive your previous attitude toward me, but it's too early for us to become besties. We're not that close to each other." Roxanne flashed a polite and distant smile at Frida, then continued, "You can address me as Drive Jarvis just like Mr. Queen does. We can start by being friends." As a matter of fact, she had only agreed to be friends with Frida out of respect for Jonathan. Taken aback by her rejection, Frida stiffened. Meanwhile, Jonathan felt she had already gotten off to a good start by successfully having Roxanne agree to forgive her. He chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. "Dr. Jarvis is right. Why don't you start by being friends? Anyhow, you'll have plenty of opportunities to get to know each other better. Whether or not you become besties is something that only time can tell. Roxanne looked at him, the smile on her face becoming much more relaxed. From the day she met Jonathan, she discovered he always behaved toward others with the utmost propriety, never once making things difficult for the other party. Despite her reluctance, Frida had no choice but to go with the flow. Her priority then was to win Roxanne's forgiveness so that she could rejoin Queen Group. Okay, then. Beaming at Roxanne, she pushed the gift back to her. I bought this for you. It isn't expensive. Please accept them as a token of my sincerity. Jonathan chimed in, yes, Frida put in a lot of effort to pick this gift. Dr. Jarvis, do accept it. If you don't, she won't believe that you've forgiven her. Roxanne glanced at the present and noticed it was indeed an affordable purse. It was only then that she extended her arm and took it. Thanks for the gift. This meal is on me, she offered, nodding at them. Jonathan readily accepted her offer. During lunch, the trio chatted about the collaboration between Queen Group and the Research Institute. Knowing that his best friend had set his mind on Roxanne and that they were in a committed relationship, Jonathan decided to deepen his involvement with the Research Institute. Naturally, Roxanne was more than delighted to have that happen. That meal was an enjoyable event for them both, save for Frida. Nevertheless, she finally got to return to Queen Group. Her wish had come true. After lunch, Roxanne returned to the Research Institute to work while Jonathan brought Frida to Queen Group. With that, they went their separate ways. Even though Jonathan had agreed to let his sister rejoin the company, he still had some reservations. As a result, he merely gave her a title instead of entrusting her with critical decision-making responsibilities. Frida dared not ask for more. She was fine with anything as long as she would get paid. At the same time, Aubrey and her family were busy moving out of their mansion. Due to their financial constraints, it was impossible for them to reside in the city any longer. Their only option was to secure a dilapidated mansion in the suburbs to call home temporarily by using the $100,000 that Frida had given Aubrey. The mansion had been unoccupied for several years, and though it had furniture, everything was coated in a thick layer of dust. However, they could not afford to hire a cleaner and had to clean up the mansion themselves. It took them a whole day to finish the first round of cleaning. Gina took on the majority of the cleaning duties. As soon as they finished, she collapsed onto the couch in a state of exhaustion and lamented, "This is terrible. In comparison to our former home, this place is uninhabitable." Upon hearing her comment, Samuel roared, "Stop dreaming. We don't have a home anymore. Even this house is just a cheap rental." He then glared at his daughter with displeasure. "You're nothing but trouble." Aubrey lowered her head to mask the suppressed, crazed look in her eyes. "Roxanne and Lucian. I despise both of you. Why is all of this happening to me? I've lived a life of comfort all these years, but now I'm suddenly banished to hell." Suddenly, Gina recalled something and grabbed Samuel's sleeves. "Let's ask the Queen family for help. We can ask Frida to help us. She's good friends with Aubrey. Since she even paid a visit to Aubrey yesterday, she'll surely help us. Besides, we've been on good terms with the Queen family for years." Before she could finish her utterances, Samuel interjected harshly, the Queen family is the reason why we are in this state. Anger coursed through his veins as he glared at his wife and daughter. Foolish women! I can't believe they had no idea who did this to us. How dare they suggest that we ask the culprits for help? Hearing the revelation, Gina dropped to the ground in shock. I can't believe the Queen family is the culprit. I assume that with our friendship of years, even if they refuse to help us, at the very least, they won't hit us when we're down. Yet, they are the reason we ended up in such a state. If that's the case, why did Frida come to our house yesterday? Did she come to shed crocodile tears? Gina glared at her daughter resentfully. You knew about it, didn't you? Aubrey's involvement in the company's affairs meant that she must have known who the culprit was, yet she still permitted Frida to visit her, much to Gina's bafflement. If I knew the Queen family was behind this, I wouldn't have allowed Frida to enter our house. Aubrey's eyes had also turned red. So what if I did know? It was the Farwell's order. Lucian drove us into a corner all because of that. I refuse to give up just yet. Even if I end up in hell, I'll drag that down with me. Her words made Gina feel as though the world was crumbling around her. She could not believe Lucian was so ruthless as to disregard the past bond between the two families. It means that we've utterly offended the Farwell family and can never make a comeback. I can never return to my previous luxurious life anymore. When that realization occurred to Gina, she fainted. Mom! Fear crossed Aubrey's eyes at the sight of her mother collapsing to the ground. We need to go to the hospital now, she exclaimed, dashing toward Gina. Samuel's face was as black as thunder. No way! She just fainted from an emotional shock. Don't forget that we're strapped for cash. There's no need to send her to the hospital just because of a minor illness. He then pushed Aubrey away with a swing of his arm, picked Gina up, and brought her upstairs. Aubrey glared at his retreating figure, madness continuously manifesting in her eyes. Mom is sick, but she can't even go to the hospital. I refuse to lead such a life. Overtaken by the extreme rage, she phoned Frida, who had just rejoined the company with Jonathan's approval. Frida was content with being able to return to the company, even though her apology to Roxanne the previous day did not go as expected. She was leisurely playing games on her phone in her own office when Aubrey's name suddenly popped up on the screen. Her hand trembled, and she nearly tossed her phone. I knew I wouldn't be able to be rid of Aubrey easily, but I had no idea she would contact me again this fast. What does she want this time? Money? Or is she going to order me to do something evil again? At the thought of those possibilities, Frida's hands shook non-stop as she answered the call. Yet, to avoid infuriating Aubrey, she had to feign nonchalance. Aubrey? What's the matter? Aubrey gritted her teeth and demanded, "Give me 5 million." That caused Frida to spring to her feet in shock. 5 million? I've just rejoined Queen Group, so I have no means to get that sum for her. But I can't afford to offend her for now. Carefully, Frida asked, "When do you want the 5 million? Today? As fast as possible." Aubrey replied in an icy voice. At that moment, she was extremely insecure after seeing Gina faint before her eyes. Not only was she desperate for money, but she also wanted an astronomical sum. As of then, Frida was her ATM. Frida could not help but shudder again. She was not like Aubrey. Aubrey had a say over the Pearson family's matters. To her, several tens of millions were nothing. But in Frida's situation, she had zero authority in the Queen family. The money she spent was allowance given to her by the elders. Given how extravagant she was with her money, she had only a few million in her hand. If I gave Aubrey 5 million in one go, I wouldn't have much left for myself, would I? I don't have that much money, Aubrey. You should know about my situation. Frida tried to bargain her way out cautiously. An ugly scowl showed up on Aubrey's face. Then how much do you have? Frida mulled over it for a moment. 2 million. Can't go any higher, I won't have enough to spend if I give her more than 2 million. Now that I've just rejoined Queen Group, I can't possibly lay my hands on the company's money yet. Besides, Jonathan will surely get suspicious if I use the money now. On the other end of the line, Aubrey's breathing turned rough. Give me 2 million today first. Make up for the rest of the 5 million after that. Relief washed over Frida when she heard those words. Through the phone, her tone remained sincere. I will. Don't worry, Aubrey. As long as I'm in the Queen family, I won't let you live a tough life. Satisfied with the response, Aubrey snorted coldly and hung up after letting Frida know the address. The darkened phone screen reflected Frida's vicious expression. What a bloodsucker! Of course, Frida dared not waste any time as she was also worried that Aubrey might do something drastic if she was desperate. That afternoon, she grabbed her bank card and hurried to the suburban mansion. As soon as she entered, she was utterly shocked by the environment in the house. If Aubrey wasn't sitting on the couch, Frida would have wondered if the place was even fit for humans to stay in. No wonder Aubrey sounded so mad over the phone. Have you eaten, Aubrey? We can head out and eat something if you haven't. Frida recomposed herself and walked up to Aubrey with a smile. Instead of sitting down, she stood by the side and fixed her eyes on the latter. Only then did Aubrey notice Frida's existence. Lifting her gaze, she coldly instructed, put the money down and get lost. More than happy to leave the place as soon as possible, Frida placed the money on the coffee table and turned to leave. However, just as she turned around, Aubrey stopped her. Have you come up with a solution yet? Frida froze for several seconds before she registered what Aubrey was talking about. A few days ago, Aubrey had asked her to think of a way to help the Pearson family get out of their predicament. Nevertheless, the one behind everything was the Farwell family. Based on Frida's capabilities alone, there was no way she could go against that family. Troubled and exasperated, Frida whipped her head around. Aubrey, I really don't have a way, you useless piece of trash. Aubrey furiously got up from the couch and was about to say something more when a sharp voice suddenly rang out from upstairs. The nerve of you to come here! Gina, who had just woken up from her unconscious state, trembled with fury when she saw Frida in the house. Behind her, Samuel also wore an ashen expression. Frida was briefly taken aback but still habitually greeted the two of them, Mr. and Mrs. Pearson, get out. We don't know you. Don't you ever dare appear in our house again. Gina scrambled down the stairs, stormed up to Frida, and jostled her in an attempt to chase her out of the house. Taking note of the two elders' expressions, Frida felt sorry for them. That was Jonathan's instruction. There was nothing I could do. Gina cut her off and screamed, "You guys are of the same family. You're just as guilty as him. Get lost. I don't want to see you queens ever again." As Frida was chased out of the house while wearing a reluctant expression, she was, in truth, rejoicing inwardly. If I get thrown out by Aubrey's parents today, I can use that as an excuse to break all ties with Aubrey. That'll be wonderful. Unfortunately, that was all wishful thinking on her part. Before long, Aubrey went up to Gina and held her back. "Mom, please don't be like this. Frida is unlike the rest of the Queen family. She's my best friend. Look, she even gave us money." Aubrey viciously shot daggers at Frida before trying to gently coax her mother into forgiving Frida. Without a doubt, she hated the Queen family too. Nevertheless, she knew she could not cut off contact with Frida just yet because the latter was still of value to her. Seeing Aubrey standing up for Frida, the emotionally unstable Gina turned to the former and berated, "Why are you still defending her? Have you forgotten how we ended up in this predicament?" Aubrey's expression changed drastically. "I didn't forget. But that's exactly why we can't chase Frida away." With that, she forcefully dragged Gina back into the living room. Before heading in, Aubrey shot Frida a look, signaling her to leave immediately. Frida's expression was gloomy as things did not turn out the way she wanted. She then spun on her heel and left. Back inside the mansion, Gina felt such an immense surge of anger and despair that she could not formulate her thoughts into words. All she could do was bawl her eyes out, tears streaming continuously down her face. It went without saying that Aubrey was feeling inexplicably frustrated as well. She merely glanced at her mother and headed upstairs without giving any explanation. The mansion, which was already dilapidated, instantly descended into a state of despair. Meanwhile, Roxanne received a call from Jack again after busying herself with work for several days. "Ms. Jarvis, do you remember the new drug that I mentioned earlier? The one I'm planning to research and develop?" Jack's cheerful voice sounded from the other end of the line. Roxanne, who was too overwhelmed by work, only recalled that they had previously talked about that subject after hearing Jack's reminder. "Do you need my help?" She left the research area and found a quiet spot to take the call. "Collaborating with the Damaris family will greatly benefit the development of our research institute in Chania." Jack hummed an acknowledgement and added, "It'd be wonderful if we could work together. I firmly believe that your research institute is my ideal business partner." Needless to say, Roxanne would not let the opportunity slide. "It's my honor to continue working with the Damaris family." Jack chuckled faintly when he heard her response. "We'll talk more when we meet. There are still some details that we need to discuss." Roxanne agreed at once. The two also decided on the time and venue of their meet-up before hanging up. The moment the call ended, she received another call. This time, it was from Lucian. Roxanne answered it without hesitation. "Have you been very busy the past few days? Essie says that you're hardly at home." The two rarely met since their return from Jade Burrow. Lucian went over to visit the kids several times, but Roxanne was always not around and would leave them in Linda's care. Only after hearing Lucian's voice did Roxanne realize they had not met each other for quite some time. On top of that, the time she spent with the kids had also dwindled lately. A guilty look flitted across Roxanne's eyes as that realization dawned upon her. It's all right. The research institute has got more projects recently, so we're busier than usual. But it'll get better soon. Lucian furrowed his brows slightly. No matter how busy work is at the research institute, you shouldn't overwork yourself. Don't forget that the kids are still waiting for you at home. Having heard what the man said, Roxanne could not help but feel amused. This man is more of a workaholic than I am. Yet he's reminding me not to overwork myself? However, at the same time, she also felt a warm current flowing through her heart. Lucian had mentioned visiting Roxanne in the past few days, but she rejected him by saying she had work to do. When he heard Estella mention that Roxanne was rarely home, he finally realized how hard she had been working recently. Are you free tomorrow at noon? Let's have lunch together, Lucian suggested. He was determined to let Roxanne get some rest. Roxanne fell silent for a few moments when she heard the time he mentioned before replying apologetically, "Sorry, I'm not free." Lucian frowned. "Why? Is there work that you have to complete?" Roxanne scratched her nose sheepishly. "I've promised to meet up with Mr. Damaris for lunch tomorrow to discuss a project." "Jack Damaris?" Lucian's expression instantly darkened. "We've hardly been in contact these few days, and yet she's been contacting him?" What the elderlies from the nursing home said echoed in Lucian's mind once again. After all, he and Roxanne did not work in the same industry. Plus, the woman was a workaholic, causing their quality time together to minimize. Lucian felt threatened when he realized that. Taking note of the man's silence, Roxanne softened her tone and explained, "I want to stay in Chania and be with Essie. Hence, I was thinking of expanding the research institute. A collaboration with the Damaris family would be of great help to the development of our research institute." Naturally, Lucian would not stop her from expanding her career. Although he was unhappy when he heard her say that, he had no choice but to relent. "All right. I'll invite you to lunch another day then. I hope you won't keep rejecting me." Roxanne was surprised, for she did not expect him to give in that easily. Momentarily stunned, she agreed with a smile. After ending the call with Roxanne, Lucian called the three children and asked them for a favor. The children were quick to agree. The next morning, Roxanne saw the three children sitting on the couch when she went downstairs. She was understandably surprised when she saw them. "What's wrong?" Recently, she had been getting up earlier than usual to go to work, and the children would usually only wake up and bid her goodbye when she was about to leave. "I wonder why they woke up so early today." The three kids flashed her adorable smiles. "Mommy, will you be busy today too?" Roxanne patted their heads apologetically and said, "Sorry for not spending enough time with you these days. Let's all go out and have fun after I finish work." The children nodded. Estella, on the other hand, stared at Roxanne's neck with wide eyes. Roxanne couldn't help frowning in confusion and reached up to touch her bare neck when she met Estella's gaze. "Essie, is there something on my neck?" Pouting, Estella replied unhappily, "Mommy, why aren't you wearing the necklace?" Roxanne was taken aback by the little girl's question. She then quickly returned to her senses and understood that Estella was referring to the necklace that Lucian gifted her. "It's not convenient for me to wear jewelry when I work," she patiently explained to Estella. However, the girl was stubborn. "Mommy, is it because you don't like that necklace?" Roxanne subconsciously shook her head. "Then it's because you don't like Daddy." Estella pouted in aggrievement and lowered her head pitifully. "Mommy, please don't hate Daddy." Roxanne was utterly confused as she stared at Estella. "I've explained everything to her, but she doesn't seem to understand." Since she was in a hurry to leave and didn't have the time to comfort Estella, she had no choice but to give in and went upstairs to wear the necklace. A smile crept onto Estella's face when she saw Roxanne wear the necklace. The reason Roxanne did not wear the necklace was that it was indeed inconvenient. When she arrived at the research institute, she took off the necklace and kept it in the pocket of her jacket. After bustling around for the entire morning, Jack suddenly called during lunchtime, telling her something cropped up. He asked if they could meet at night instead. Roxanne did not think too much about it and agreed. When evening came, Roxanne exited the research institute to find Jack waiting for her by the entrance. "I'm so sorry. Something happened at the company this afternoon, and I couldn't leave," Jack apologized as soon as he saw her. Unbothered, Roxanne smiled. "That's okay. Work is more important. Are we still going to the restaurant we reserved yesterday?" "You go ahead. I'll follow behind." With that, she turned and made her way toward her car. The look in Jack's eyes turned gloomy as he watched her approach her car without hesitation. He said nothing and got into his own car. Both cars drove off from the research institute. The restaurant was nearby the research institute, and the two of them arrived within 10 minutes. Jack had already reserved them a table near the window. Roxanne took off her jacket, and in the process, the necklace fell out of the pocket and landed right beside Jack's feet. Jack picked it up and glanced at it before shifting his gaze to the person before him. His words seemed to insinuate a deeper meaning as he commented, "This necklace doesn't seem like your style." Roxanne was taken aback. Indeed, if she were to buy a necklace for herself, she would not have purchased such a lavish design. However, she didn't see a need to explain to Jack where the necklace came from. As such, she merely grinned and did not reply. However, judging from her expression, Jack could already tell who gave her the necklace. His lips curled into a wry smile before he handed the necklace to her. "This necklace attracts too much attention. As people in the medical field, we like to keep a low profile. No wonder you would leave it in your pocket instead of wearing it." Sensing that he was implying something, she stared at the person before her, puzzled. Jack did not comment more on it as he changed the topic to the new drug they were about to develop. Most of the medicinal herbs we're using to develop the new drug are planted by the Damaris family. My grandpa also hopes we'll use the Damaris family's raw materials as the main ingredient as well. Roxanne's focus was immediately diverted when they began talking business. She nodded in agreement and said, "That way, we can ensure better quality, too." She was a little worried after finishing her sentence. "But if our research institute will be in charge of the drug's research and development, the supply of raw materials, I'm afraid the Damaris family would demand a hefty price for the raw materials." Jack replied matter-of-factly, "The institute will only be responsible for the research and development. As for the medicinal herbs, we'll provide sufficient supplies. Roxanne breathed a sigh of relief when she heard that. After that, their discussion about the new drug became smoother. Roxanne had to admit that as the leading family within the traditional medicine field, the Damaris family's research in this area was indeed much more advanced as compared to the market. Many of their ideas and concepts coincided with Roxanne's. The topic of the conversation between Roxanne and Jack gradually extended from the new drugs research and development to the entire traditional medicine market. Before they knew it, it was already late. The two of them finally stopped chatting when Roxanne's phone rang. Benny was the one who called, asking when Roxanne would be returning home. Roxanne quickly apologized to the boy and explained her situation. She then bid Jack goodbye before she got up and left. Jack fumed in silence as he watched Roxanne's retreating figure. Even though she didn't say anything, I could already guess that Lucian was the one who gave her that necklace. I can't believe she's taking it everywhere she goes. Just what in the world is she thinking? It was already past 9 at night when Roxanne reached home. As she got out of the car, she felt anxious and guilty for leaving the children alone at home. Hence, she hurried into the mansion, but as soon as she entered, she was greeted with the lively sounds of the children playing with each other and running around. Roxanne stopped in her tracks and looked inside the living room, surprised. Initially, she thought Madeline had come over, but Lucian was sitting on the couch instead. As if sensing her presence, the man turned around to look. When their gazes met, Roxanne's shock intensified. "What are you doing here? Didn't we agree on meeting some other day?" Upon noticing her return, the children stopped playing and gathered around her, yearning for affection. "Mommy, you came home so late. Daddy's been waiting for a long time." Roxanne ruffled the children's hair, but her gaze was still locked on Lucian. Lucian sat on the couch, crossing his legs. The button on his collar was undone, and he seemed relaxed and comfortable. Roxanne felt a strange but wonderful sensation surge within her heart when she thought of how he played with the children while looking like that. Lucian got up from the couch and made his way toward her. His gaze swept past her neck. His expression darkened when he noticed her bare neck. "Didn't you say your appointment was at noon?" In the face of Lucian's gaze, Roxanne felt inexplicably culpable although she hadn't done anything wrong. "Mr. Damaris had something important this afternoon, so we had to change the time at the last minute." Dissatisfaction flashed across Lucian's face when he heard that. Is that how the Damaris family does their business? How can they change the appointment time just because they want to? If they're this casual when it comes to work, who would collaborate with them in the future? Roxanne did not know how to respond. She could only grin and change the topic nonchalantly. "Did you guys have dinner?" Benny piped up. "We did. But I think Mr. Farwell hasn't eaten yet." Linda had prepared dinner for the children before she left. Lucian arrived while the children were eating, seemingly planning to freeload dinner. Upon hearing that, Roxanne turned to look at Lucian for confirmation. Lucian scrunched his eyebrows in tacit vindication. Roxanne frowned and said with a sigh, "Why didn't you call me earlier?" She patted the children's heads as a gesture for them to make way. Subsequently, she washed her hands before preparing food in the kitchen. Verily, Lucian had lost his appetite after finding out that she and Jack had been out eating dinner until late at night. He initially wanted to reject her offer of making dinner for him, but when he saw her getting busy in the kitchen for his sake, he swallowed his words. Roxanne made some simple pasta. Earlier, she had been engrossed in her conversation with Jack regarding medicine and did not eat much. Since I'm preparing food for Lucian, I might as well make some for myself. The children approached and demanded to have some when they smelled the pasta's delicious aroma. Roxanne could only scoop some pasta for each of them, too. The sight of the family of 5 sitting around the dining table enjoying pasta at almost 10 at night made for a heartwarming scene. Only then did Roxanne remember to ask Lucian, "Why did you suddenly come over? Is there something wrong?" Lucian glanced at her and replied, "I'm here to see Essie." Roxanne nodded in understanding. In the next second, Lucian spoke again. "Plus, I said I'll take responsibility. Since you haven't given me an answer, I can only take more extreme measures and court you a little more persistently." Roxanne's ears turned red at the thought of what he was referring to when he mentioned the word responsibility. Guiltily, she glanced at the children. The children were in sync as they pretended not to hear the conversation and savored the food. Roxanne heaved a sigh of relief and glared at Lucian, embarrassed. "I need more time to think about it." Lucian shrugged before flashing her a smile. "Then I'll just have to pursue you more persistently." The children rejoiced inwardly when they heard their parents' conversation. "I wonder if Mommy has realized that her attitude toward Daddy has completely changed. With their fast progression, we'll become a real family very soon." It was late after they finished dinner. Lucian did not stay much longer either. He said his goodbyes and left. The smile on Lucian's face slowly disappeared and was replaced with an annoyed expression the moment he stepped out of Roxanne's place. While eating, Roxanne had briefly told him about the collaboration between her research institute and the Damaris family. The woman was all smiles as she told him about it, but he felt bitter. "Jack is obviously coveting my woman. But, just like what the elderlies had said, we're not working in the same industry. Even if I wanted to do something, I don't know how." The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he got. Therefore, he decided to pull over by the side of the road and took out his phone to call Jonathan. Jonathan had just fallen asleep when his phone rang and woke him up. Glancing at the caller ID, he noticed it was from Lucian and involuntarily recalled what had happened previously. The last time Lucian had called him this late at night was to get him to take down Pearson Group, which cost him a good night's sleep. "I wonder what is it this time?" Jonathan was reluctant to pick up the call, but he was also afraid that Lucian would show up at his door. In the end, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and groggily answered the phone. "Lucian, what's up?" Jonathan could hear Lucian's deep voice and a few honks on the other end of the line. "I want to acquire the medicine company operating under the Damaris family. Do you know how I can do that?" Jonathan froze. He was immediately snapped out of his groggy state before answering, "Is Farwell Group preparing to enter the medical industry?" One thought popped into his mind. If Farwell Group ventures into the medical industry, won't Queen Group's status in the industry fall again? Moments later, he realized the key point of Lucian's words. He wants to take over the Damaris family's medical company. Wide awake, he sat up in bed, his mind racing with various thoughts. Don't tell me you're doing this because of Roxanne. You're jealous of Jack, and in a fit of anger, you want to. Lucian interrupted his guess with displeasure. Well? Do you have any ideas? Farwell Group doesn't have much experience in the medical industry, but the Damaris family has a highly established foundation, so I can only ask you for advice. According to Roxanne, the Damaris family provides the medicinal herbs they need for the new drug. Roxanne will interact less with Jack if I acquire the medicinal herbs company under the Damaris family. In the future, I can provide her the medicinal herbs whenever she needs them. That way, we'll get to interact more with each other. Judging from Jonathan's understanding of Lucian, he knew that his guess was correct, although Lucian did not answer his question directly. Naturally, he wanted to help his friend, but there was nothing he could do. It's as you said. The Damaris family's influence is highly established in the medical field. To be honest, I've also tried to acquire their company. However, no matter what I did, they refused to sell me the company. I've even tried raising the price 5 times higher and tried befriending them, but they just won't let go. The medicinal herb company owned by the Damaris family was mainly run by their own people, leaving outsiders nothing but envy. Lucian went silent after hearing that. However, that piqued Jonathan's interest. Why? Is Roxanne working with the Damaris family again? Do you need my help with anything? Lucian managed to detect the hint of derision in his voice and snickered. Go on and acquire the Damaris family's medicinal herbs company if you'd really like to help. Jonathan rubbed his nose sheepishly and said, well, anything but that. Then there's nothing you can do. Bye. Lucian hung up the call right after that. Jonathan's face was full of reproach as he watched his phone screen go dark. That was the second time Lucian had woken him up in the middle of the night and hung up after dropping a bomb on him. It had taken him considerable effort to finally drift off to sleep. Great. It looks like I won't be able to sleep at all tonight, either. Jonathan lay back down in bed, scrolling through his phone as he attempted to fall asleep. However, a trending post on social media immediately caught his attention. The post read, Breaking news. Roxanne Jarvis, the ex-wife of Lucian Farwell, was spotted secretly meeting up with the eldest son of the Damaris family. Jonathan initially thought his eyes were playing tricks on him as he crawled out of bed. He stared at the post for a few more seconds to confirm what he had read before he finally believed what he was seeing. Then, he clicked on the post to find out more. There were several pictures posted in the thread. In the photos, Roxanne and Jack were sitting face to face at a table by the window of a restaurant, chatting and enjoying each other's company. There were even a few angles that captured the gleam in Roxanne's eyes. Even Jonathan couldn't help speculating about Roxanne and Jonathan's relationship at the sight of the photos. Then, he read the comments on the post. Netizen A. Roxanne Jarvis? Didn't she just get back together with Mr. Farwell? Netizen B. She didn't clarify the rumors regarding her and Mr. Damaris back then. Now, it seems like there really is something between them. Netizen C. I guess this is the perk of being a pretty girl. She can get two handsome, wealthy men falling head over heels for her at the same time. The comment section was full of slanderous remarks about Roxanne and speculations about her relationship with Jack and Lucian. Jonathan grew increasingly alarmed as he continued reading the comments. No wonder Lucian asked me that question just now. If it were another family, they would have collapsed like the Pearsons or the Hightowers. I have to say, Lucian has met a formidable opponent this time. I wonder what Roxanne thinks, though. Sleep eluded Jonathan after he saw the post, and he immediately sent Lucian the link to the post. Meanwhile, Lucian just got back to the Farwell residence. Confused upon seeing the link Jonathan sent him, he asked, "What's this?" Jonathan replied, "Just click the link. Otherwise, you're going to regret it tomorrow morning." Lucian furrowed his brow when he read Jonathan's reply. He clicked on the link while washing up. The title of the post made him stop brushing his teeth abruptly. Following that, his face sank when he saw the photos inside the thread. He had to admit that both Jack and Roxanne were excellent doctors, and he believed Roxanne when she told him that they only met up to talk about medicine. However, he had never imagined that Roxanne would be so happy while she was with Jack. She had never smiled at him like how she did with Jack. Grabbing a towel, he wiped his face dry and walked out of the bathroom before sitting on his bed, scrolling through the comments section with a solemn look on his face. His face turned dark as thunder as he read the myriad of speculations about Roxanne's relationship with Jack. Caden was fast asleep in his bed when a phone call roused him. He glanced at his phone and noticed that it was a call from Lucian. He immediately sprung up from bed and took a few seconds to regain his senses before taking the call. "Mr. Farwell." Lucian's cold voice rang out. "Contact the Public Relations Department and order them to publicize my relationship with Roxanne. I want everyone to know about us." Shocked by Lucian's order, Caden was wide awake. What happened? Why does Mr. Farwell suddenly want to publicize his relationship with Mrs. Farwell? And in the middle of the night, no less? In a shaky voice, Caden uttered, "Mr. Farwell, Mrs. Farwell's two children's identities are unverified. I'm afraid that public opinion is not going to go easy on Mrs. Farwell and the Farwell family if you publicize the relationship." Lucian's face turned grim on the other end of the phone when he thought about Roxanne's two children. He knew he had Archie and Benny to thank for the current stage of his and Roxanne's relationship. If their biological father didn't turn up, he wouldn't mind treating the two boys as his own. Besides, they were about the same age as Estella. With that thought in mind, Lucian told Caden, "Validate their identities, then." Dumbstruck, he asked, "Are you saying, from today onward, they're the Farwell boys whom Roxanne took away when we got divorced back then?" Lucian stated plainly. His tone was flat and impassive as if he was talking about something inconsequential. However, Caden was flabbergasted. He was aware of Lucian's feelings for Roxanne, but he never thought that Lucian would go so far as to acknowledge her children and even claim them as his own. What in the world happened? Before Caden could respond, Lucian's voice sounded again. "I want everyone to be informed about this by tomorrow morning." He hung up right after. Caden was caught in a dilemma as he watched his phone screen go dark. Do I really have to wake everyone in the Public Relations Department right now? In the middle of the night? Then again, it didn't seem like he had any other choice. Caden called the person in charge of the Public Relations Department first before checking his social media. He wanted to search for the rumors spreading online about Lucian and Roxanne. To his surprise, Roxanne's name popped up right after he opened his social media. After checking the trending posts, he finally understood why Lucian had ordered him to do such a thing. That was the second time Roxanne was entangled in such a widespread scandal with Jack ever since her return. Moreover, the public opinion on the internet was very much against Roxanne. Caden finally understood that Lucian was mainly trying to protect Roxanne. Then again, he reckoned that Lucian might have the intention to do so a long time ago. Upon realizing Lucian's aim, Caden started to act more proactively. The next morning, the public opinion on the internet did a 180. Farwell Group issued a statement in the middle of the night, stating clearly that Roxanne was the mother of the Farwell family's daughter. Besides, her 2 children were also born alongside Estella. However, out of consideration of the little girl's health issues, Roxanne decided to let the girl stay with the Farwell family and take care of the 2 boys alone. The internet was abuzz with heated discussions following the statement. One netizen commented, "The 2 boys are Lucian Farwell's. No wonder Roxanne brought them back to the country." Another commented, "As expected, she's the legitimate wife." For Lucian Farwell to issue an official statement on behalf of the Farwell Group, looks like they're announcing their relationship to the public for real this time. Soon, some recalled Roxanne's previous scandal after reading the statement. One comment read, "So what happened between Mr. Farwell and Aubrey Pearson?" Another read, "Isn't that obvious? Aubrey is the home wrecker. She was the one who faked the rumors so Roxanne would give up on Mr. Farwell." One netizen replied, "But what about Roxanne and Jack? They had been involved in 2 scandals. Besides, they seem to be on good terms." Another comment read, "Isn't that obvious? They are both capable doctors. Besides, the recent medical consultations were all initiated by the Damaris family. It's normal for them to be on good terms." Many online users expressed their disapproval of Aubrey, while the rest offered their support and blessing to Roxanne and Lucian. Now that Roxanne and Jack's relationship was clarified, everyone thought Roxanne and Lucian were the perfect couple. One comment read, "I heard that Roxanne had participated in various medical consultations recently. A while ago, someone ran into her at the nursing home in Jadeboro. Mr. Farwell was with her, too." Another read, "Really? Oh, Roxanne is such a kind and pretty angel. No wonder Mr. Farwell adores her." One netizen commented, "Oh, I believe in love again. They must live happily ever after." The netizens' opinions were divided. Roxanne and Lucian became the epitome of a perfect relationship for many, while Aubrey, who used to be admired for her loving bond with Lucian, faced harsh criticism after her true colors were revealed. It was only after reading the announcement that Jack realized he and Roxanne were secretly photographed yesterday. After reading the comments praising Roxanne and Lucian's relationship, he threw his phone to the ground in a fit of rage. "I can't believe I didn't discover the perfect opportunity and ended up letting Lucian beat me to it. If I knew what happened last night, I would have used it to my advantage and manipulated public opinion to sow discord between Lucian and Roxanne. At the same time, I'll also be able to win Roxanne's heart." Alas, it was too late now. Lucian had released the news to the public, and there was no way to turn back the clock. Jealousy filled Jack's heart as he read the one-sided comments online, and a crazy idea soon popped up in his mind. Even if Roxanne ended up choosing Lucian, I can figure out a way to make her stay by my side. They'd better not drive me up the wall. Meanwhile, the boys discovered Roxanne and Jack's scandal online once it went viral. They also saw how the netizens criticized her. Enraged, they stayed up all night, determined to stand up for Roxanne against the online haters. At dawn, they were struggling to keep their eyes open yet still furious at the baseless speculations that had been made by those netizens about Roxanne. Benny balled his hands into fists and asked, "Should I hack into the website and delete this post? I can then ban Mommy's name online so they won't be able to discuss her anymore. That way, Mommy won't be able to see the degrading comments. No one can criticize her online anymore." Archie's expression was grim. "If you do that, people will only think Mommy is hiding out of guilt." Hearing that, Benny harumphed angrily and furrowed his brows to figure out another solution. They were feeling helpless when they suddenly saw the notice released by Farwell Group. Jonathan couldn't get a good night's sleep after reading the discussion online. The following morning, as soon as he woke up, he grabbed his phone to check the public's reaction. He nearly fell out of bed after reading the statement released by Farwell Group. "Am I dreaming? I've been aware for a long time that Essie is Roxanne's daughter, but what did I just read? Could it be true that the boys were born at the same time as Essie? It appears that they are the same age, and it would not be far-fetched to suggest that they were born together. Why didn't Lucian tell me anything? If this is true, why would Lucian have to work so hard to pursue her when they could just be together as a rightful family?" Jonathan was confused. "I won't be able to focus on work if I don't get answers." With that thought in mind, he quickly washed up and drove straight to Farwell Group. "I must get answers from Lucian himself. If Lucian and Roxanne are indeed the parents of the boys, I am more than happy to present them with a generous monetary gift to commemorate the occasion. However, if that is not the case, Lucian is a lovesick fool. He accepted the boys as his own even though he isn't their biological father. This is highly commendable." Soon, his car rolled to a stop before Farwell Group. Jonathan hopped out of his car and strode into the building. He stepped into the elevator and happened to bump into Caden, who had just left the PR department. Caden's face appeared weary, with dark circles beneath his eyes indicating a lack of sleep. Despite his exhaustion, he managed to muster a polite smile as he greeted, "Mr. Queen." Jonathan was busy thinking about the discussion online, so he merely gave Caden an absent-minded nod. However, a thought occurred to him, and he spun around to give Caden a perplexed look. "What's with that statement that your company released last night?" Lucian obviously didn't release that statement personally, so it could only be Caden. A wave of misery washed over Caden when he heard the statement being mentioned. He shook his head and said, "You should ask Mr. Farwell. I was just carrying out his orders." Jonathan wasn't the only one who was curious, for the employees in the PR department kept asking the same questions last night. Caden could only tell them he had no idea. Fortunately, Jonathan didn't make things difficult for him and patted his shoulder in recognition of his hard work. "Thank you for your effort." Caden exhaled a sigh of relief. "I was just doing my job." They had only exchanged a few words when the elevator arrived at the top floor. Jonathan waited outside for Caden to report his arrival before he headed into Lucian's office. Inside, he saw Lucian seated behind his desk, his face unreadable. It was almost as if the heated debates and controversy that had been raging online had nothing to do with him. After he walked in, Lucian spared him a look and asked calmly, "Why are you here?" Jonathan strode over to him and plunked himself down on the chair in front of the desk. "How dare you ask me that question? I want to know if the statement Farewell Group released last night was true. Are the boys yours?" After asking that question, he stared at Lucian unblinkingly. Lucian remained unfazed. "What do you think?" Jonathan was baffled by his indifferent reaction. Carefully, he replied, "I don't think so." "They aren't mine," Lucian answered at the same time. Jonathan's jaw dropped open in disbelief. "If they aren't his, why does he look so calm in comparison to me, who is freaking out? What are you thinking?" He shot Lucian an incredulous look. "If you want to help Roxanne by stopping the haters online, then you can just publicize your relationship with her and issue warning letters through your lawyer. Why would you do this? If it was revealed that the CEO of Farewell Group had claimed to be the biological father of his ex-wife's children even though they were not his, no one would believe it. It sounded pretty ridiculous, but that was exactly what Lucian did. If I only did that, the netizens will still assume the worst about the boy's father." Displeasure flashed across Lucian's eyes as he explained, "The kids are innocent. If she's willing to marry me, it will only be a matter of time before the boys become mine, too." Lucian knew very well that the last thing Roxanne wanted was to drag the kids into her mess, so he was more than willing to solve the trouble for her. He meant what he said. The only way to stop the public from making malicious assumptions about Roxanne was to clarify the boy's background. Hearing that, Jonathan finally concluded that his friend was indeed a lovesick fool. "It looks like we've underestimated him. Lucian doesn't fall in love easily, but when he falls in love with someone, he'll do anything for her." Wait. Jonathan soon realized something. Who is the father of the boys? He has never revealed himself. If he were to come across this statement, Lucian had made himself pretty clear through that statement. If the boy's father discovers it, he might use the secret to threaten Farewell Group. What should we do if that happens? A vicious look appeared in Lucian's eyes when the man was mentioned. He knew Jonathan's unease, for he had the same concern before releasing that statement. However, that concern paled in significance compared to Roxanne being the recipient of malicious comments. If the boy's biological father dared to show himself, Lucian would take the chance to make him regret abandoning Roxanne and the boys. A sense of murderous intent hung in the air around Lucian as he contemplated the matter. Jonathan shuddered in fear as he stared at Lucian. In an icy voice, Lucian declared, "No matter who he is, I won't let him harm my family. I'll make him regret abandoning them." Jonathan grew worried. What if Roxanne regrets it? He didn't make it clear what she would regret, yet they both were aware of what it was. Roxanne had 2 boys with that man, so they could still have feelings for each other. If Roxanne regretted her decision and chose to return to that man. A chill ran down Jonathan's spine when he considered that possibility. The temperature surrounding Lucian dropped to a freezing point, but he refused to dwell on that matter. Perhaps he's already dead. Otherwise, why hasn't he made an appearance all this while? Furthermore, Roxanne appears to be hesitant when it comes to discussing him. Compared to the possibility that Roxanne would return to that man, Lucian would rather believe that he was dead. Jonathan was taken aback by the sight of the dark look on his friend's face, but he didn't say anything. This matter was complicated, so he knew Lucian must have considered everything carefully before coming to a final decision. Anything else he said would only serve to add more to Lucian's plate. Archie and Benny had barely finished reading the discussion online when Estella arrived at their door, leaving them no time to even shout for joy. "Archie, Benny, Ms. Linda is here to give us a ride to school," she yelled as she rapped firmly on the door to get their attention. Estella might be staying with them, but Roxanne worked long hours recently, which meant that the little girl didn't get to see her after waking up in the morning. Thus, Estella was dependent on the boys for companionship, eagerly looking forward to seeing them every morning. This morning, however, the boys were still upstairs even after Linda arrived. Hence, Estella graciously offered to go up there and fetch them. When Archie and Benny heard Estella's voice, they quickly closed the laptop, but they were unable to restrain the grins that were spreading across their faces. "Why are you grinning?" Estella was confused, but that didn't stop her from grinning along with them. Benny patted her head like an adult and replied secretively, "I won't tell you. You'll find out soon, anyway. I can't believe Daddy released a statement saying we're his children. Does that mean we don't have to keep our identities a secret from him soon?" With that thought in mind, Benny turned to look at Archie expectantly. Archie was well aware of what Benny was thinking. Despite the broad smile on his face, he wasn't as naive as Benny and was certain about his guess. "It looks like we're right to change our minds about Daddy. He loves Mommy dearly. I can't believe he did that to protect Mommy." Linda drove the kids to the kindergarten. During break time, Benny dragged Archie to the restroom to avoid Estella. The two boys whispered in the male restroom. "Archie, how did Daddy find out about our identities?" Benny asked innocently. He assumed Lucian published that statement because the latter had discovered the truth about their identities. However, after asking that question, he realized that Archie didn't seem happy as he was. Rather, Archie seemed annoyed. Benny was baffled. Looking at his brother's foolishly innocent demeanor, Archie responded, "Daddy doesn't know that we are his children yet." Benny furrowed his brows. "Seriously? But it must be Daddy who released that statement. If he doesn't know, then why did he say that?" Archie told him solemnly, "Because of Mommy." Benny tilted his head in confusion. "If he doesn't explain our identities, the netizens will assume Mommy had us with another man. They will then insult her." Archie was indeed Lucian's biological son, for he understood his father's intentions like the back of his hand. By acknowledging us as his own, Daddy is making sure that Mommy will not be subjected to the malicious words of the online community. He is doing so to protect us all from any possible hurtful remarks. Benny listened with his eyes wide open. It was not until he listened to the explanation given by Archie that he finally understood the situation. He's right. Only we, Mommy, and Aunt Madeline know that we're Daddy's sons. If none of us say anything, Daddy will never find out. Daddy only did that to protect Mommy. Even so, the boys were satisfied. At least we can be sure that Daddy loves Mommy sincerely. They will end up together one day. I wonder if Mommy had seen the statement. Estella, on the other hand, was confused to see the boys beaming all day. The boys were exhilarated for nearly the whole day after seeing the announcement in the morning. When night fell, Roxanne had just stepped into the house when Archie and Benny flung themselves at her in excitement. Mommy! She was slightly perplexed by their gleeful demeanor. What's going on? Did something nice happen in the kindergarten? As soon as she ended her sentence, she glanced at Estella and was puzzled. If something did happen in the kindergarten, why isn't Essie acting the same way as them? Upon detecting his mother's confusion, Archie said, "Didn't you see the news on the internet?" That confounded Roxanne even further. What news on the internet? Excitedly, Benny added, "Mr. Farwell claimed that we're his children, just like Essie." Did I hear that right? Lucian said Archie and Benny are his children? How's that possible? Roxanne was stunned. He could tell his mother was befuddled, so he grabbed the laptop, clicked on a public forum, and showed it to her. Farwell Group's announcement was still trending at the top of the website. Roxanne clicked on the announcement and read its content. When she finished perusing the announcement, she widened her eyes in shock. Lucian really did say that. Are we really Mr. Farwell's children, Mommy? Benny feigned innocence as he stared at his mother, pretending he had no clue about his background. If Mommy says yes, then we'll be able to call him Daddy in the future. The little boy was over the moon at the thought of that possibility. Roxanne looked away, avoiding her son's gaze. There's a reason for him to say that. She was indirectly answering in the negative. Disappointment surfaced in Benny's eyes as he asked, "If that's not the case, why did he say that?" Her line of sight landed on the screen again. After seeing that announcement and the netizens' comments, I'm absolutely certain Lucian doesn't know the boy's actual background. Otherwise, he would have demanded an explanation from me, which he didn't. I have a pretty good guess as to why he said that, though. He just wanted to protect my reputation after seeing unsavory remarks about me. Still, I'm shocked he's willing to do this for my sake. Roxanne had to admit that when Benny asked her that question, she felt the urge to reveal the whole truth to him. However, this matter had stayed hidden as a secret for so many years that she was afraid to tell him the truth. She didn't know if the boys would blame her when they learned the truth. Also, she had no idea whether Lucian would reprimand her for selfishly keeping this a secret all these years. Okay then. Since his mother didn't want to talk about the matter, Benny sensibly changed the topic instead of pressing on. Mr. Farwell's saying that because he wants to help you, right? A wide, innocent smile returned to his face. When Roxanne met his eyes, she nodded while wearing a complicated expression, for she couldn't bear to disappoint the boy by shaking her head in denial again. His smile grew even more sincere. Mr. Farwell treats you well, Mommy. It will be so nice if he's our daddy. You should accept his proposal, Mommy. Roxanne was moved when she heard Benny's sincere words, and she began to waver. Lucian had already laid the groundwork. If Roxanne took the chance and told him the real identities of Archie and Benny, they could let things fall into place and be together. That way, they could also provide the three kids with a complete, happy family. Mommy, what are you guys talking about? Having been neglected by the trio for quite a while, Estella approached them unhappily. Roxanne snapped out of her thoughts at the girl's voice. She reached out and pulled Estella into her embrace, asking, "Essie, do you want Daddy and I to live together?" She seemed to be implying that she was ready to say yes to Lucian. Immediately, the three children's eyes lit up. Archie and Benny turned to Estella, who nodded firmly and answered in a childish voice, "Yes. I want Daddy and you to be together." The look in Roxanne's eyes softened following Estella's words. Then before Roxanne could suggest that they should just live together, the doorbell to the mansion sounded. Perhaps it was because she just read the announcement, Roxanne had a feeling it was Lucian who rang the doorbell. "He did something like that to protect me. Of course he'll come and claim the credit." At that thought, Roxanne stood up and walked toward the door, her countenance looking a bit complex. She had made up her mind. If it was really Lucian at the door, then she would confess the two boys' identities and accept his proposal. With that resolve in mind, Roxanne felt somehow nervous when she opened the door. Yet the moment she saw the person standing before her, her face stiffened. The hopeful feeling she had was replaced with exasperation. Roxanne had yet to adjust her expression when the person at the door spoke first. "It's late already. Are you not going to invite me inside, Ms. Jarvis?" questioned Sonia contemptuously as she stood there and looked at Roxanne with arrogance. Coming back to her senses, Roxanne frowned and remained silent for a while before stepping aside. Sonia strode in unceremoniously. At the sight of the three children beside the couch, she shot Archie and Benny a disdainful look. Then, she stretched out her arms at Estella. "Essie, come to Grandma." Wordlessly, Estella took a few steps backward and hid behind Archie and Benny. Meanwhile, the two boys couldn't help but feel dejected when they saw the way Sonia looked at them. Although Lucian had acknowledged them as his sons, it seemed like Sonia still couldn't accept them and even despised them. When Roxanne came in after Sonia and saw the latter's attitude toward the boys, her face turned grim. "Mrs. Farwell, you can just talk to me if there is any problem." Turning to the children, Roxanne instructed, "Archie, Benny, bring Essie upstairs first." They nodded obediently and turned around to head for the stairs, but Sonia's voice echoed behind them just then. "Stop right there!" Sonia glanced at Roxanne coldly and stated, "I have nothing to say to you. I'm here to bring my granddaughter home." Raising her voice, Sonia went on, "Come here, Essie. I came all the way here at this time of the night just to fetch you. Don't make me sad." She refused to take no for an answer. Estella stopped in her tracks and turned back to look at Roxanne and then at the scowling Sonia. Without a word, she moved to Roxanne's side and grabbed the hem of the woman's shirt. In response, Roxanne took Estella's hand in reassurance. She began to regret letting Sonia in. Originally, Sonia did not intend to cause trouble for Roxanne at such an hour. Yet she did not expect her son to release such a shocking announcement on the internet, and she only found out while she was having dinner. Sonia was so incensed that she didn't even finish dinner. After throwing her cutleries in a rage, she set off and drove to Roxanne's house. She was determined to make Lucian and Estella cut ties with Roxanne as soon as possible. Now that Sonia saw how dependent Estella was on Roxanne, her anger was further fueled. "Roxanne Jarvis, give me back my granddaughter," she uttered frostily as if Roxanne had snatched Estella away from her. Sensing Estella's nervousness, Roxanne gripped the former's hand to soothe her anxiety. Next, Roxanne lifted her head to face the woman opposite her. If this had happened in the past, Roxanne might not know how to respond to a demand like this. However, things were different now. She was Estella's mother, so she had the right to keep Estella by her side and the confidence to face the unreasonable Sonia. Essie is my daughter who was separated from me for years. It's only right that she stays by my side. What are you trying to do, Mrs. Farwell? Roxanne maintained eye contact with Sonia, showing no intention of backing down. Her words caused Sonia's expression to change. So you're aware that you're Essie's mother? Then where were you all these years? It was the Farwell family who put in so much effort to raise her. What did you do? You proclaimed that you're her mother right after coming back and took her away from the Farwell family. Have you ever considered our feelings? Sonia spoke as if she was doing this solely for the sake of Estella. Feeling a pang of guilt, Roxanne looked down at Estella apologetically. The girl sensed her gaze and raised her head to flash Roxanne a bright grin. She showed no signs of resentment toward Roxanne as her eyes shone with a look of reliance. That made Roxanne regain her confidence. She met Sonia's eyes firmly and uttered, "That's why I need to spend more time with Essie to make up for all those years I missed out on." The air of hostility around Sonia grew at that. Roxanne continued calmly, "If, like what you said, you put in a lot of effort and raised Essie, then her bond with you won't change no matter how long she stays by my side. You don't have to worry about that. If you really want me to stop worrying, then give Essie back. Just because you're her mother doesn't mean I'll allow you to join the Farwell family," snapped Sonia with a steely look. As she said that, she even stepped forward in an attempt to grab Estella. Roxanne stepped sideways and shielded Estella. With an icy expression, she voiced, "If that's the case, we should listen to Essie and respect her decision." She turned around and looked at Estella. "Essie, do you want to go back with Grandma?" Estella shook her head without a second thought. She had gone through so much to finally be with her mother. It was only natural that she did not want to part with Roxanne. When Sonia saw how Estella rejected her without hesitating at all, her face turned grimmer than ever. She accused, "Who knows? Maybe you told her something while she was with you all this time." After glowering at Archie and Benny once again, Sonia added, "What if Essie spends too much time with you and becomes like these two bastards under your care?" Immediately, Roxanne's countenance darkened instantly. "Please watch your attitude toward the kids. They can understand what you're saying," she warned, a forbidding aura surrounding her. Sonia gazed at Roxanne, finding the latter different from usual. "She seems fiercer." Realizing that, Sonia scowled. "How dare you talk to me like that? Do you really think you've become Lucian's wife just because he posted that statement on the internet today?" Roxanne responded curtly, "I never thought that way. I'm just telling you the truth. If you think my words are too harsh, why didn't you wonder if you've gone a little too far?" There was nothing wrong with her words, but her tone was sharp. Sonia's face contorted with anger, and she lowered her head to glance at Archie and Benny, who eyed her with hostile gazes. The boys truly hoped Sonia could accept them, but they were displeased to hear the way she talked about them. Moreover, it was obvious that Sonia was bullying Roxanne, all the more reason for them to glower at her. However, Sonia's anger only spiked further when she met the boys' gazes. Did I say something wrong? I really don't understand what's wrong with Lucian. How could he make an announcement saying these two are his? Now that Sonia had directed her malice at them, both Archie and Benny's blood boiled, so much so that they almost pounced on her and attacked her. Regardless, their expressions only made Sonia dislike them more. How could these uneducated children be part of the Farwell family? Who knows? They might be products of your entanglement with another random man. The audacity of you to even attempt to make them heirs of the Farwell family? You're delusional. At that point, Roxanne had forgotten all about being polite. Mrs. Farwell. Essie, Archie, and Benny are my children. Even if they don't get to live in the Farwell residence, I'll still provide them with a comfortable life. Don't worry. We don't want a single cent from the Farwell family. Sonia scoffed. Who do you think you are? What makes you think you can do that? As soon as she finished, Benny piped up. We don't want Mr. Farwell's money. If we need money, we can earn it on our own. However, Sonia felt as if she had heard a joke. These 6-year-old kids are so full of themselves. They're actually telling me they can earn money on their own. Ha! They're willing to say anything just to be accepted into the Farwell family. Sonia could not be bothered to argue with them, so she uttered coldly, I applaud your courage and integrity for saying that. Since you've said so, you'd better not use Essie's name as an excuse to live with Lucian. In other words, she believed they would use Estella as their stepping stone to earn themselves a place in the Farwell family. Roxanne was so close to landing a tight slap on Sonia's face, but she put a lid on her anger. That was never my intention. And please stop assuming the worst of my children. If you don't plan to communicate properly, then please go home. We don't welcome people who can't talk politely. Sonia sneered, I'm not here to communicate with you, anyway. Sure, I can leave, but Essie has to come home with me. The tension between the two adults filled Estella with panic and fear. The moment she heard Sonia's words, her face turned red, and she said tearfully, I don't want to. I want to be with Mommy. Sonia's face purpled with rage. You'll have a better mommy in the future. Still, Estella kept shaking her head. No. I just want Mommy. Roxanne's heart ached as she pulled the little girl into her embrace. If you want to take Essie away, then please give Lucian a call. I won't say anything if he agrees, she said to Sonia. It was Lucian who let Essie stay with me. So, if you want to take her away, you'll have to get his consent first, Roxanne emphasized without a change in her expression. The little girl in her embrace immediately chimed in, I'll do what Daddy says. As Sonia watched the mother and daughter duo presenting a united front, she felt her temples throb. After all, her son had already made such a statement. The answer she would get could not be more obvious if she made the call. Roxanne's saying that because she has no plans to let me take my granddaughter away. Most importantly, my son is siding with her. Ugh! I can't do anything about it. After waiting for some time and seeing that Sonia didn't take any action, Roxanne said, if you don't want to make the call, then please leave now. It's getting late, and the children are hungry. I don't have the energy to prepare another person's portion. With that, Roxanne put Estella down and gestured for the boys to take Estella upstairs. Once the children had gone upstairs, Roxanne said, do as you please then. Without waiting for Sonia's reply, Roxanne marched into the kitchen, completely ignoring the former. Just like that, Sonia was left alone in the living room. Glaring at the figure busy cooking in the kitchen, Sonia took a deep breath and hissed a warning, don't you dare think you can be a part of the Farwell family just because Lucian and Essie like you. It won't happen as long as I'm alive. Dream on. With that, she stormed out of the house in a huff. Roxanne had her back facing Sonia the entire time. Though she looked calm on the outside, deep down, she was tense. When she heard Sonia leave, she breathed a sigh of relief inwardly. It was an ugly argument, but Sonia's appearance had reminded Roxanne that it was still not time for her to reveal the truth just yet. Sonia's hostility toward the boys was obvious. Even when Lucian had already declared to the public that the boys were his, Sonia still regarded the announcement as fake news without even bothering to clarify. It was clear that she had never accepted Archie and Benny. Even worse, the two boys weren't even considered decent children in her eyes. That was all because of Roxanne's sudden departure back then, which gave Sonia a bad first impression. With that thought in mind, Roxanne felt incredibly apologetic. In fact, she began to regret not dealing with the situation properly. I should have been more humble. After all, I wanted her to accept the boys. Still, Roxanne could not think of another way to deal with Sonia when the latter kept pushing them into a corner. Meanwhile, the children had been hanging out on the balcony the entire time. The second they saw Sonia's car leave, they ran downstairs and approached Roxanne. Mommy, are you okay? Roxanne recollected herself and sighed inwardly before forcing a smile and patting their heads. I'm all right. Did I give you guys a fright just now? However, the children shook their heads and said indignantly, nope. We're just frustrated. Archie and Benny then cast her a serious gaze. We want to protect you. Roxanne was so moved that she pulled them into her arms. Thank you, darlings. Please don't take Grandma's words seriously, okay? You're all my precious darlings. Nodding obediently, they responded, we know. You're the best mommy on earth, too. The fact that they were so understanding made Roxanne feel sorry for them and at the same time guilty. She could not resist hugging them tighter. Meanwhile, in the mansion on the outskirts, Aubrey, too, saw the discussion on the internet. Her hand that held the phone trembled with anger when she saw the statement made by Farwell Group. Aubrey could tell Lucian was basically informing the public of his relationship with Roxanne. In fact, he was close to revealing their marriage certificate. At the same time, he was also responding to Roxanne and Jack's scandal, announcing to the world that Roxanne was his. Lucian never announced our engagement in the past, no matter how subservient I behaved. And now, that made him do it so easily. And what's with those tube starts? Aubrey did not believe they were Lucian's children, nor did she believe Lucian would acknowledge the identities of two illegitimate children just to protect Roxanne's reputation. In the eyes of bystanders who were unaware of the truth, they might think that Lucian and Roxanne shared a loving bond. However, those who knew them personally would think that Lucian had cheated on Aubrey. How could he do this? No matter what the possibility was, Aubrey refused to believe it. Instead, she took out her phone to call Frida for verification. Similarly, Frida was shocked when she learned about the truth from Jonathan and realized how important Roxanne was to Lucian. Hence, Frida was even more determined to stay away from Aubrey. Before she could even come up with an idea, Aubrey called. Frida answered it reluctantly, hoping Aubrey was only calling to ask for money. If that was the case, Frida could still fork out some. However, she would be at a loss for what to do if Aubrey threatened her to harm Roxanne. After reading Farwell Group's statement in the morning, there was no way Frida would foolishly offend Lucian by messing with Roxanne again. Unfortunately, Aubrey still had dirt on Frida, and the latter had no right to say no to Aubrey. Frida was already uneasy before Aubrey even uttered a word. She even took the initiative to ask, "How much more money do you need, Aubrey?" When she finished speaking, Aubrey's icy voice came through the phone speakers. "What's with the news on the internet? Are the tube stars really Lucian's children?" Even though they were only talking on the phone, Frida could imagine Aubrey's furious expression from the latter's tone. She could also imagine Aubrey's reaction after she had given her answer. Hence, she gulped nervously as she racked her brain for a response that would not anger the person on the other end of the line. Before she could even think of an answer, Aubrey made a guess. "It's not true, isn't it?" Aubrey hissed. Frida's heart clenched. "Aubrey, please calm down." Regardless, Aubrey cut her off. "How am I supposed to calm down? I'm going to lose my mind from jealousy. What's so great about that? How is she able to make Lucian go to such lengths for her?" Her words rendered Frida speechless. Nonetheless, Frida could only pray and hope she would not be implicated because of Aubrey's anger. Thankfully, Aubrey only spat out a few curses and ended the call. Frida sighed a breath of relief when she saw the phone screen darken. Meanwhile, the more Aubrey thought about it, the more frustrated she felt. She scrolled through the phone for some time. Suddenly, her eyes gleamed, and she dialed the number at the bottom of her contacts list. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.